Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be learning about the midpoint and we'll be able to do 11.4. Today students will be able to find the midpoint of a line formed by 2 points. And so the midpoint is a point that cuts a line segment into 2 congruent parts. Previously, remember that we were doing constructions, and so it's basically a point where which is exactly half of the 2 endpoints. And how did I find that dot? Well, you can do it by constructions, by finding the perpendicular bisector. Bisect, remember that it means to cut into 2. So that's the perpendicular bisector right here. It would be the perpendicular bisector. And so you can see that this point is exactly halfway from here and here. Okay, so the midpoint cuts a line segment into 2 equal parts. Now we can find the midpoint if we're given the 2 endpoints. We can find the midpoint by using this formula, which is x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And you'll see in a minute how, what does that mean. Okay, so what if we have this set of points well, we can say that this is x1, y1. Remember that this is x and y, but it's 0.1, and this is x and y, but it's 0.2. So that's why it has the x1, y1, x2, y2. So the formula, we said that it's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and that's gonna give me my x coordinate, and y1 plus y2, and that's gonna give divided by 2, and that's gonna give me my y coordinate. So now we're gonna go ahead and replace x1 goes here, x2 goes here, so the first one from both, right? And so that will be 2 plus 8 divide by 2. And then for the y, so let me use, so that was my x. For the y, we're gonna go ahead and add those 2 and divide by 2. So it's gonna be 5 plus -3. Notice that because it's a negative, we put it between parentheses and then divide by 2. 2 plus 8 is 10, and we're gonna divide by 2. So now we're simplifying each coordinate. 5 plus -3, that's 2 divided by 2. And so 10 divided by 2 is 5. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And so this is going to be the midpoint of these two. So this is right in the middle of these 2 endpoints. So let me graph it. You don't have to do this part unless you really want to practice. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good enough. So this is 2, 5. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there. This is 8, -3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3 negative on y. And now I'm going to graph this. This should be in between these 2 points. Okay, so it's going to be 5, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. And as you can see, it's exactly halfway. Okay, so that's how you find the midpoint. Just use the formula, substitute your x's, substitute your y's, and divide by 2, and then that's going to be your midpoint. Okay, let's do another one. If you need more time, make sure you pause the video. So now you have 0, 1, negative 3, 7. And so again, it helps to write the formula over and over, that way you memorize it. x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. We substitute, remember we have, this is x1 and x2. Okay, we're just looking at the x's. So it's 0 plus negative 3 divided by 2. The 2 comes from the formula. And now we are going to look at the y1 and y2. And that's going to give me my y. So it's going to be 1 plus 7 divided by 2. And 0 plus negative 3. It's negative 3. We bring down the 2. 1 plus 7, 8 divided by 2. Now in here, this one is divisible. 8 divided by 2 is 4. But this one is not. And the slope cannot be a mixed number, but a point can be. You can leave it as a fraction, like that, improper simplified fraction, or you can leave it as a mixed number or as a decimal. So the appropriate answers for this would be negative divided by positive is negative. 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 is left over, and so you get negative 1 1/2. Or you can put negative 1.5, or you can just leave it as negative 3/2. Any of these three I will accept. Okay, so but I think I'm gonna leave this one, negative 1 and 1/2. Okay, so that's my midpoint. Again, you don't have to graph it. In fact, I'm not gonna graph it for the example either. That's all you have to do, find the midpoint. Okay, pause it if you need to take note. Now let's do another one. So again, the midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And for my y coordinates, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And so I proceed to substitute. My two x's is the first number in here and the first number in here. So it's going to be negative 9 plus 0 divided by 2. And my y1 and y2, which is 10 plus 0 divided by 2. Now in here you can go ahead and directly eliminate this. When you add or subtract 0 from anything, it's just a number. If you want, you can just put negative 9 over 2, or go ahead and leave it as the answer. So how many times, well, first of all, negative divided by positive, negative. How many times does the 2 go into 9? 4. 4 times 2, 8. To 9, you have 1 left over, and you just bring down the denominator. And here, 10 divided by 2 is 5, and that's it. That's your midpoint. Again, that means that this point, it's right in the middle of these 2 points, or that if you form a line from here to here, that this is going to cut that line in half. Okay? Okay, now let's say that they give you one endpoint and the answer, the midpoint. You have to figure out what the other endpoint is. And so that's what it says. Given the following midpoint and endpoint, find the other endpoint. So we have the midpoint, we have x1 and y1, but we're missing x2, y2. And so we're kind of gonna use the formula, but I think I'm just gonna go directly. Let's see, the midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And the formula for the y coordinate is y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, we have this, but we don't have one of this. We are missing x2. We only have x1. So we're going to leave that as a variable and then start canceling to be able to find that point. So this is, I'm going to show you, to find the x, we're going to need the x here. I think I'll use pink. We're going to use the x here, and that's going to give us the answer for that. Okay, so we're going to use, so the answer is 2 equals, we have x1, which is 5, plus, we don't have x2, so we're going to put x2 in there. That's what we're going to find, and divide by 2. Now, for the y, this part, that means that this is the answer, equals, okay, the 3 came from y1, which is 2, plus y2, which we don't have, and then divide by 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and solve that. So if in here, to leave y by itself, x by itself, I'm going to have to cancel the 5 and the 2. The first one that I'm going to cancel is the division. So if I'm dividing by 2, I'm going to multiply by 2. I have to do it on both sides. And so this cancels this. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 plus x to the second power. Not x to the second power, sorry about that. It's the second x. And then if I'm adding 5, the opposite of adding is subtracting 5. And so my second x, or the x for the second endpoint, is going to be 4. Take away 5 becomes -1. Okay, so that's my value here, -1. Now I have to find y, and I'm going to do it by solving for the y2, because that's what I'm trying to find, right? So if I'm dividing, I'm going to multiply by 2, and 2 times 3 is 6, equals 2 plus y2. If I'm adding 2, the opposite is to subtract 2, and so y2 is equal to 4. So my y2 is 4. So this is the answer that I'm looking for, and so now I have the other endpoint. Again, the way to do it is put the x equals the value of x plus, since this was empty, put x2 divided by 2. And then by solving that equation, you'll find the value of that x2. In here, what I did was to put 3 equals the 2 from here plus, this was empty, so I put y2 divided by 2. Then by solving it, I was able to find that value, the value for y of the second endpoint. Let's do one more example to make it a little more clear. Again, it's the same directions. Given the following midpoint and endpoint, find the other endpoint. Okay, we're looking for the other endpoint. And again, this is going to be equals to x1 plus x2. But we have values in here. We don't have values for x2 or y2 for that matter. Okay, so -2 equals +1 plus, we don't have the value, so we just put x2 divided by 2. So that's my first formula. Now for the second one, I'm going to do 3 equals y1, which is negative 6, plus y2, which we don't have, so we just put y2 and divide by 2. Again, remember that this doesn't have any value, the 2 in here, those don't have value. It's just to say from point 2 or from point 1. Okay, now we'll proceed to, if we're dividing, the opposite is to multiply. These cancel, and so 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. We bring down the 1 plus x2. If we're adding 1, the opposite is to subtract 1. And so x2 is equals to, carefully here, when we have negative 4 minus, doesn't mean necessarily that we're going to subtract, okay? Remember that if we have the same signs, we add. So negative 4 and negative 1 become negative 5. Okay, so that's my x2. I'll put it in a minute. Okay, and so in here, if I'm dividing by 2, the opposite is to multiply by 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 6 plus y2. If I'm adding a negative 6, that means that I'm going to have to add 6 to cancel this. And so this cancels, and my y2 will be 12. Okay, so this is the second endpoint. So for x is negative 5, and for y2 is 12. So this is the answer right here. Okay, and that's all for this video. Now you can work on 11.4 and have fun.